In my presentation, I will be discussing different people who have influenced the arts, and in doing so, they have also influenced the people of Latin America, the United States, and the world. I will begin by discussing Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo, two artists who represented the marginalized populations. I will then describe Oscar Niemeyer's Brasilia and the goal of his new city. That will be followed by the influence two writers have had, Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Federico Garcia Lorca. I will finish out the presentation by sharing about the great influence of Celia Cruz. Let's begin. Diego Rivera's mural at the Detroit Institute of Arts is a great example of the work he did. This mural is representative of the working class in many ways, the first of which is the location of the mural, which allows for the subjects to view it freely. The content of the mural is also significant because it clearly shows the work life of the men who worked in the factories in Detroit. This mural was painted during the Great Depression, which further shows the importance of hard work and commitment. Rivera was a crucial player in the Mexican muralist movement. He wanted his work to be accessible to all. In making his work public and free, he was able to use his art to educate even the illiterate members of impoverished populations. He used his murals to show the human experience, as well as making political statements. For example, when he painted Lenin's face in a mural being created for the Rockefellers, which was destroyed because of his controversial content choices. Rivera shared his personal beliefs and opinions through his work and used the accessibility of his murals to educate and inform the marginalized and undereducated populations in Mexico and the United States. Frida Kahlo was not one of our studied artists in this course, but she was one of my personal favorites. Kahlo is a champion for women purely through her unapologetic openness about the struggles in her own life. Kahlo painted her personal plights, but in doing so, she connected with women all across the world. Frida Kahlo experienced many tragedies in her life, some unique to her, as an accident as a child which led to her chronic spinal pain and problems, and others which are universal pains, such as the loss of a child, an unfaithful husband, loneliness, self-contempt, and fear. The scenes presented here are Henry Ford Hospital and Self-Portrait with Cropped Hair. Henry Ford Hospital, which was painted in 1932, shows Kahlo in a hospital bed after losing her baby. Kahlo struggled to give birth due to her health issues, which resulted from her childhood accident and other complications. The scene depicts different things that have led to the pain and loss she has experienced. Self-Portrait with Cropped Hair, which was painted in 1940, occurred right after Kahlo's divorce with Diego Rivera, as he had been unfaithful to her. Kahlo frequently shows herself dressed in traditionally men's clothing or in scenes which represent her fluid sexual preferences. Kahlo is considered a feminist because she does not adhere to the stereotypical gender roles of a woman or stay within the boundaries for a woman as set by the culture and societal norms of her time. Oscar Niemeyer created Brasilia as a city for all. I chose his work on this city because when designing it, he set out to create a city where the wealthy and the poor coexist in equality and fairness. He wanted the poor to be able to live next door to the wealthy and maintain similar living conditions. However, there are certain challenges the city faces that must be overcome in order to successfully reach this intention, such as improving the walkability of the city and making it a place to live rather than a government campus, as some have called it. While this goal has not yet been realized in reality, some critics remind us that it takes hundreds of years before a city has reached its status quo, and therefore we watch and wait to see how this city evolves, hoping that it will come to pass that the poor and the wealthy can coexist in peace and equality. Gabriel Garcia Marquez is a brilliant writer who is world-renowned. As Encyclopedia Britannica states, in both his shorter and longer fictions, Garcia Marquez achieved the rare feat of being accessible to the common reader while satisfying the most demanding of sophisticated critics. Garcia Marquez wrote many novels and short stories which contain complex and carefully woven plots and details, including Cien Años de Soledad, his most famous novel. His novels have been extremely popular and well received, largely due to the relatability of his writing. Garcia Marquez stated that all human beings have three lives: public, private, and secret, and he wrote about all three. Garcia Marquez wrote from his own experiences, but also from his own imagination, to create a vast universe of varying stories. This allows the reader, both common people and the wealthy and educated, to find connection and meaning in his work. The best way to describe Federico Garcia Lorca's connection to the marginalized people is in his own brilliant words. He states, "The poem, the song, the picture, is only water drawn from the well of the people, and it should be given back to them in a cup of beauty, so that they may drink, and in drinking understand themselves." This quote perfectly frames Garcia Lorca's intentions when writing. He writes for the reader and to help the reader understand his or herself. One of Lorca's earliest works is the Libro de Poemas, in which he writes poems based in Spanish folklore, which most readers would easily be able to relate to, as it is something they would have grown up hearing and learning about, as young as a child. Later in his life, Garcia Lorca became involved in the Spanish Civil War. In 1974, he wrote The Ballad of the Spanish Civil Guard, which describes fighting in the Civil War with a focus on the Gypsy perspective and experience. Garcia Lorca was later killed as a result of his involvement in the Spanish Civil War. In spite of his death, his poems and writings live on and still connect to people today and will continue to connect to them in the future. Celia Cruz was a voice for many people. She represented Cuba and life in Cuba, always showing and sharing the resilience and joy of the Cuban people, in spite of being exiled in 1961 by Fidel Castro. Cruz incorporated African elements of lyrics, dance, and music into her songs and performances. She meshed the two cultures into a beautiful Afro-Latinidad take on the traditional salsa. Cruz taught the world about her cultures and her lifestyle through her songs and dance. As she described in a 1997 interview, "I have fulfilled my father's wish to be a teacher, as through my music, I teach generations of people about my culture and the happiness that is found in just living life." Celia Cruz allowed thousands and thousands of people to experience the Cuban culture through her music. Celia Cruz was widely respected and loved. Even in death, she knew she was going to be a symbol of joy and hope. Before passing away, Cruz requested that the funeral be held in a way that would allow massive amounts of people to come pay their respects and once more celebrate her life. Celia Cruz embodied the spirit of the Cuban people. She was resilient, bright, joyful, and unique. She lived her life unapologetically, and in doing so, she was able to find her place in the hearts of many people, even to this day. On this slide, I have listed the resources used to complete this PowerPoint. Thank you.